The Imperial War Council chamber had been carved from a dead moon before humanity had learned to sharpen stone. Its walls were layered with the bones of extinct stars, polished smooth by time and reverence. Every seat was occupied by a species that had survived long enough to forget what fear felt like. At the center, elevated above all others, stood High Strategos Veilcor. He did not need to raise his voice. The chamber listened to him the way gravity listens to mass. "The matter before us is simple," Veilcor said, his tone measured, ceremonial. "The human species has crossed a threshold." A hologram bloomed above the obsidian floor. A blue-green star system rotated slowly, Sol, surrounded by annotations, numbers, and threat assessments that barely registered above insignificance. "They are adaptive," one counselor said, mandibles clicking. "Disruptive. Their expansion curve is anomalous." Veilcor inclined his head, acknowledging the comment without conceding its weight. "So were the Kidhari. So were the Veln. So were 1,000 others whose names you no longer remember." A ripple of agreement moved through the chamber. Humans had been catalogued 2 centuries earlier. Category 7 industrial primitives. Emotion-driven. Fragmented governance. Excessive cultural variance. Dangerous in theory. Irrelevant in practice. "They resist assimilation," another voice added. "They refuse imperial instruction." Veilcor allowed himself the faintest smile. "Resistance is not rebellion. It is merely delay." The hologram shifted. Red vectors traced outward from Imperial territory, converging toward human space like the slow closing of a fist. "I therefore propose extermination," Veilcor said. "Complete. Efficient. Final." No gasps followed. No outrage. The Empire had ended civilizations for less resources, positioning, inconvenience. Humanity's crime was potential. A counselor leaned forward. "Total deployment?" "Yes." "Ritual engagement?" "Yes." "Preservation of samples?" Veilcor paused, considering. "Minimal. Their genetic diversity is untidy." The vote was unanimous. Far from the ancient chamber, the Imperial fleet began to move. Millions of vessels disengaged from orbital sanctuaries and ceremonial docks. They assembled in formations refined over 40 millennia, perfect arcs, disciplined lines, fleets within fleets. Their hulls gleamed with symbols older than most languages, their weapons sanctified by repetition. Priests walked the decks, reciting the same blessings they had spoken before every Imperial victory. Captains reviewed doctrines memorized since birth. No one spoke of uncertainty. There was none. Human space lay ahead, quiet, unadorned, small. Veilcor watched the armada advance and felt satisfaction settle into his bones. This campaign would be brief. Clean. Another footnote in the Empire's endless march. "They will scatter," he said to his aides. "They always do." The first human warning came without drama. A deep-range sensor array on the edge of the Helios expanse registered mass distortions inconsistent with stellar phenomena. The data packet crossed 12 systems in under a second and landed in a secure command node beneath Earth's crust. No alarm sounded. A woman in a gray uniform studied the readout, frowned once, and forwarded it with a single word attached. Confirmed. Within minutes, the word reached Admiral Elias Ward. He was asleep when the light strip above his quarters brightened. Not harsh. Just enough. Ward opened his eyes and knew before the message finished loading. "How many?" he asked. "Enough," his aide replied through the wall speaker. "Extermination scale." Ward sat up slowly. He did not swear. He did not ask for confirmation. He swung his feet to the floor and reached for his uniform. "How long?" 48 hours to the boundary. Less to first contact." Ward exhaled once. "Begin protocol." Black silence. There was a pause on the line. Then, "Yes, sir." Across human space, worlds went dark, not in panic, but in precision. Civilian traffic rerouted along evacuation corridors that had never been publicly acknowledged. Data networks shifted to hardened backbones. Shipyards activated dormant slips. The sky did not fill with speeches or declarations. Humanity did not announce war. They prepared for it. Ward entered the command chamber beneath Luna, a circular room threaded with soft light and floating tactical projections. His senior commanders were already present, appearing as holographic figures from across the system. No one asked why the Empire had come. Everyone already knew. Status, Ward said. Civilian withdrawal is ahead of schedule, Commander Reyes reported. Fleet assets mobilizing under distributed command. Empire formations? Ward asked. Textbook, another voice replied. Ceremonial density. They're not hiding. Ward nodded. They never do. A younger officer hesitated before speaking. Sir, they outnumber us. By an order of magnitude. Ward looked at him, not unkindly, but directly. They always have. He turned to the projection of human space. It looked empty now. Empty by design. They believe silence means fear. Ward continued. They believe size equals inevitability. Those beliefs are the weapon we'll take from them. No one argued. As the meeting concluded, Ward remained alone, staring at the darkened stars. He thought of old reports, old simulations, old losses. Border skirmishes where humanity had barely survived. Lessons written in blood and debris. The Empire believed war was about dominance. Humans had learned it was about survival. Admiral, his aide said quietly. Imperial fleet has crossed the Helios boundary. Ward straightened. Then it begins. Far across the void, High Strategos Veil Corps observed empty space where resistance should have been. No broadcasts. No fleets. No defiance. He allowed himself a satisfied breath. They fled, he said. Behind him, the Imperial Armada advanced, perfect, unstoppable, certain. Unaware that the silence ahead was not surrender. It was a held breath. Space did not announce the approaching Armada. It merely bent. Gravitational sensors along the Helios expanse registered the distortion first, long arcs of mass pressing against reality itself. To Imperial observers, it was a triumphant sight, millions of hulls moving as one, a monument to inevitability. To the humans watching from hidden relays, it was confirmation of a prediction centuries old. Admiral Elias Ward stood at the center of the Luna command chamber, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on a tactical projection that showed the Empire's advance in cold, impartial light. Red vectors spread outward like veins, each one a fleet, each fleet a weapon sharpened by tradition. They're maintaining ceremonial alignment, Commander Reyes said. No deviations. No forward scouts. Ward nodded once. They think intimidation is a phase of combat. Reyes allowed himself a thin smile. It worked on everyone else. Everyone else believed in their rules, Ward replied. Across the chamber, dozens of holographic figures shimmered into focus, human commanders scattered across multiple systems. There was no central flagship, no throne at the heart of the fleet. Authority flowed through encrypted consensus, decisions branching outward like neural pathways rather than marching down a chain. Ward addressed them without preamble. We are not here to trade territory. We are not here to prove resolve. We are here to survive an extinction attempt. Silence followed, not uncertainty, but understanding. Protocol Black Silence remains in effect, he continued. No broadcasts. No challenges. No response to provocation. Let them wonder. A commander from the Tau Ceti yards leaned forward. Fleet readiness is green across all sectors. Autonomous groups are standing by. Good, Ward said. Release the first veil. On the projection, empty space shifted. Human ships emerged not in a grand reveal, but in fragments, small clusters here, solitary hulls there, appearing at irregular intervals along the expanse. Their designs shared no common silhouette. Some were broad and angular, others slender and asymmetrical. Hull plating varied in texture and color, layered composites absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Imperial sensors struggled to classify them. Veil Corps watched the data scroll past with mild curiosity. Their formations are incoherent, he said. Discipline is absent. An aide hesitated. High strategos, their emissions are unusual. No centralized command signature. Veilcore dismissed the concern with a flick of his hand. Then decapitation will be unnecessary. The Empire's fleet continued forward, massive and unified, a moving city of warships bound together by doctrine older than humanity's written history. On the human side, the lack of uniformity was deliberate. Each ship carried its own command logic, its own tactical autonomy, its own capacity to fight alone or vanish entirely. They were not pieces on a board. They were answers to questions the enemy had not yet asked. Ward turned to his second-in-command, Captain Lian Zhou. Status? Enemy targeting algorithms are active, Zhou said. They're painting us, but their predictive models are lagging. Ward's lips curved slightly. They're trying to understand us before they engage. That's a mistake, Zhou said. They don't know that yet. A junior officer broke the calm. Sir, Imperial doctrine requires a pre-engagement declaration. They'll broadcast soon. Ward considered that. Mute it. Entirely? Yes. The channel opened anyway, forced through sheer power. The Imperial transmission was layered with harmonic authority, designed to dominate the listener's senses. This is High Strategos Veilcore of the Galactic Empire, the voice declared. You occupy territory claimed by forces beyond your comprehension. Power down your vessels and prepare for judgment. In the command chamber, no one reacted. The message played into silence, unanswered. Veilcore frowned. They do not respond. An aide shifted uneasily. Perhaps they cannot? Perhaps, Veilcore said. Proceed. The Empire's forward batteries charged, ancient reactors humming with restrained violence. The first volley had been ritualized for millennia, overwhelming force, perfectly timed, meant to shatter morale before hulls. Human sensors tracked the build-up in real time. Ward raised a hand. All units phase shift on my mark. The human fleet did not brace. It scattered. Not in retreat, not in panic, but in calculated dispersion. Ships altered vectors at sharp, irregular angles, some accelerating, others decelerating, a few vanishing entirely behind localized distortion fields. To an outside observer, it looked chaotic. To those within the system, it was choreography. Imperial targeting solutions recalculated. Then recalculated again. Then failed. Enemy movement is erratic, an Imperial analyst reported. Predictive lock unstable. Veilcore's mandibles clicked once, irritation bleeding through composure. Fire regardless. The first Imperial barrage tore across the expanse, beams and projectiles of such magnitude that lesser fleets would have ceased to exist. Space itself seemed to recoil. They struck nothing. Human ships slipped through gaps measured in meters, milliseconds, probabilities. Some allowed glancing blows to dissipate across layered defenses. Others were simply not where the Empire believed them to be. In the Luna chamber, Ward watched the engagement unfold without raising his voice. They fired first, he said quietly. Zhou nodded. Permission to proceed? Not yet, Ward replied. Let them commit. Another Imperial volley followed, heavier than the first. Again, it found no decisive target. Veilcore stared at the readouts, the first hint of dissonance creeping into his thoughts. The humans were not breaking. They were not responding. They were waiting. What are they doing? He demanded. An analyst swallowed. High strategos, they appear to be repositioning. Continuously. Ward felt the moment settle into place, the point where inevitability began to crack. All units, he said calmly. Weapons free. Adaptive Cycle 1. Across the expanse, human ships shifted posture. Ports opened. Systems synchronized. The silence broke, not with a shout, but with intent. And for the first time in 40,000 years, the Galactic Empire prepared to learn something it had never needed to know. Fear had not been absent. It had simply not arrived yet. The first human strike did not announce itself with light. It arrived as absence. Imperial sensors registered sudden null zones where space itself refused to report what occupied it. Targeting arrays stuttered, recalibrated, then returned contradictory data. For a fraction of a second, the Empire's vast computational lattice hesitated, an imperfection so small it would have gone unnoticed in any previous war. That hesitation was fatal. "Contact!" an Imperial officer shouted. "Multiple losses. No, not losses, disappearances." Veilcore turned sharply. "Clarify." Before the officer could answer, the tactical display fractured. Entire squadrons vanished from formation, not exploding, not breaking apart, simply gone. The surrounding vessels drifted through the empty space where allies had been moments earlier, momentum carrying them into confusion. "What weapon was deployed?" Veilcore demanded. "We cannot classify it," the analyst replied, voice tight. "No energy spike. No radiation residue. No debris." Veilcore's mandibles flexed. "Then they are hiding their fire." "They are not hiding," another voice said quietly. "They are bypassing." Across the expanse, human ships moved with renewed purpose. The earlier dispersion tightened into fluid patterns, shifting constantly, never repeating. From each hull, projectiles launched, dense, compact masses accelerated to fractions of light speed. They did not glow. They did not announce themselves. They struck Imperial shields and ignored them. A battleship older than humanity's species buckled inward, its forward section collapsing as if struck by an invisible fist. Armor designed to withstand stellar flares folded, then tore apart. The ship's reactors went critical a heartbeat later. Imperial doctrine stated shields were absolute until overwhelmed. Human weapons did not overwhelm them. They went around them. "Shield integrity irrelevant," an analyst whispered. "They're exploiting localized space-time shear." Veilcore stared at the cascading failures. "Impossible." On the human side, Admiral Ward watched the data scroll with controlled focus. He did not celebrate. He adjusted. "Enemy countermeasures adapting?" he asked. "Attempting to," Commander Zhou replied. "They're reinforcing shields, increasing output." Ward nodded. Cycle 2. Human targeting logic rewrote itself in real time. Algorithms abandoned successful parameters the moment they were identified, deliberately introducing variants. No tactic lasted long enough to become a pattern. Each Imperial adjustment arrived one step behind a battlefield that refused to hold still. Imperial return fire intensified. Ancient cannons roared, saturating volumes of space with annihilation. Human losses followed, ships struck, hulls breached, lives extinguished. But where Imperial formations absorbed casualties as doctrine dictated, human vessels reacted independently. Damaged ships withdrew without permission. Others surged forward to fill gaps that no longer existed. "They're not holding lines," an Imperial commander said, disbelief edging his voice. "They're flowing." Veilcore felt something cold settle behind his eyes. "Order the 3rd and 7th Wings to close ranks." "They cannot," the aide replied. "Command links are inconsistent." The Empire's greatest strength, its unified command, had become a liability. Signals delayed, rerouted, corrupted by human interference that did not block communication so much as distort it. Orders arrived late or incomplete. Fleets hesitated, waiting for confirmation that never came. Human electronic warfare did not silence the enemy. It lied to them. Ward leaned forward slightly as new data arrived. "They're clustering," he said. "Predictable response. Increase pressure on the periphery." A human cruiser slipped through overlapping Imperial fields and unleashed a swarm, thousands of autonomous constructs no larger than missiles, each carrying minimal intelligence and a singular directive. They did not target hulls. They targeted sensors. Imperial vision collapsed sector by sector. "High strategos," an officer said, struggling to maintain composure. "We are losing battlefield coherence." Veilcore rounded on him. "Then impose it." "With respect," the officer replied. "We no longer know where it is." The realization struck Veilcore with unexpected force. The humans were not attempting to match Imperial strength. They were dismantling Imperial certainty. Every assumption, about formation, about response, about escalation, was being tested and discarded before it could solidify. A direct channel request cut through the chaos. Veilcore hesitated only a moment before accepting. Admiral Ward appeared on the display, calm, unadorned, the image of a man at work rather than a conqueror. "You have engaged Imperial forces without declaration," Veilcore said. "This is a violation of—" "You crossed our boundary with an extermination fleet," Ward replied evenly. "Declaration seemed unnecessary." Veilcore's gaze sharpened. "You are outmatched. Your resistance will end in extinction." Ward's expression did not change. "That was your plan. Ours is different. You cannot defeat the Empire," Veilcore said. "We are eternal." Ward tilted his head slightly. "So you believe?" The channel cut. Moments later, a coordinated human strike tore through the Empire's left flank. 3 carrier groups collapsed under precision fire that targeted propulsion nodes and command spines, leaving the vessels adrift, intact but helpless. Imperial casualty estimates climbed, 5%, then 8%, then 12%. Numbers that should have been impossible accumulated with relentless efficiency. An analyst spoke the thought no one wanted to voice. "High strategos, they are improving." Veilcore felt the weight of the statement. The humans were not executing a fixed strategy. They were observing, adjusting, refining. Each exchange fed the next. Each loss sharpened their response. "They are learning," the analyst continued. "Faster than we can compensate." Veilcore's claws dug into the edge of the command dais. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty breached ritual. "Withdraw?" someone whispered. Veilcore turned, fury flashing. "No. Advance. Overwhelm them." But even as the order left his mouth, the Empire's advance faltered. Ships hesitated, formations fractured, commanders waited for clarity that no longer existed. On the human side, Ward watched the Empire struggle to reassert control. He felt no triumph, only grim confirmation. "They've lost the initiative," Joe said quietly. Ward nodded. "And they don't know how to get it back." Across the battlefield, the myth of Imperial invincibility cracked, then split wide open. The Empire had faced rebellion before. It had faced resistance, desperation, even fanaticism. It had never faced an enemy that treated extinction as a solvable problem. As the third Imperial battleship vanished into nothingness, an officer on Veilcore's bridge whispered words that would echo across the Empire long after this day. "They are not fighting to win," he said. Veilcore looked out at the collapsing formation, at the impossible adaptability of the enemy, and felt something unfamiliar coil in his chest. "They are fighting," the officer finished, "to survive." And for the first time in 40,000 years, survival was no longer guaranteed. High strategos Veilcore had survived 700 years of conquests without ever ordering a retreat. He had watched stars burn, species beg, fleets break, and never once had doubt demanded space in his thoughts. Now it did. The Imperial command lattice flickered as delayed orders crossed corrupted channels. Tactical projections refused to stabilize, each update contradicting the last. Where the Empire had once seen a battlefield, it now saw fragments, isolated fights, vanishing signals, ships responding to ghosts. "Stabilize the lattice," Veilcore commanded. The reply came strained. "We are attempting reroute through auxiliary relays." "How long?" The pause lasted too long. "Minutes. Possibly more." Minutes were an eternity. Across the Helios expanse, Imperial formations had begun to compress, not by design, but instinct. Commanders pulled inward, seeking coherence through proximity. It was the oldest reflex in war. Admiral Elias Ward had been waiting for it. "They're collapsing toward command density," Commander Joe said. "They want control back." Ward's eyes followed the projection, already anticipating the shape of the enemy's fear. "They're about to burn everything they can't hold." Joe inhaled sharply. "Scorched space doctrine?" "Yes," Ward replied. It's the only answer they have left. As if summoned by the words, Imperial energy signatures spiked across multiple sectors. Planetary bombardment arrays powered up. Stellar disruption weapons, rarely deployed, always final, slid into firing alignment. Veilcore straightened, resolve hardening into something desperate and sharp. Initiate purity protocol, he said. If they cannot be crushed, they will be denied. An aide looked up in alarm. High Strategos, those systems include occupied worlds. Veilcore did not look at him. Empire endures. Space is replaceable. The first Imperial strike tore a moon apart, scattering debris across a civilian evacuation corridor humanity had cleared only hours earlier. The message was unmistakable. Ward closed his eyes for half a breath. Execute, he said. The human response was not a counter-barrage. It was a decapitation. Across Imperial space, command relays vanished under precision strikes timed to the nanosecond. Not destroyed, disabled, isolated, rendered mute. Human weapons targeted logic cores, authorization nodes, decision hubs. The Empire's strength, its vast hierarchy, became its weakness as each severed link multiplied confusion. Enemy command degradation accelerating, Joe reported. They're losing fleet-level coordination. Ward nodded. Begin lattice collapse. Human cyber warfare units surged through compromised channels, injecting false confirmations, phantom orders, echoes of authority that led Imperial ships into hesitation or contradiction. Some vessels powered down weapons awaiting clearance that would never arrive. Others fired on empty space, chasing shadows authored by human code. Veilcore felt the Empire slipping through his grasp. Override autonomous governors, he ordered. Centralize all remaining control to this node. The technician's hands trembled. Sir, the governors are no longer responding. Veilcore turned slowly. Explain. They've locked us out, the technician said. Authorization chains rewritten. The impossible settled into reality. The humans had not attacked the Empire's ships. They had attacked its right to command them. A priority channel forced itself open. Ward appeared once more, the backdrop behind him calm, almost ordinary. It's over, Ward said. Veilcore bared his mandibles. You presume too much. You've lost fleet cohesion, command authority, and escalation control, Ward replied. Your weapons are either offline or uncommanded. Your options are gone. You are young, Veilcore said. You cannot comprehend the scale of what you challenge. Ward's gaze held steady. We comprehend extinction. For a moment either spoke. Outside the command chamber, Imperial ships drifted leaderless. Some powered down. Others transmitted surrender codes without orders, captains choosing survival over doctrine. Veilcore felt the weight of centuries press inward. What are you? He asked quietly. Ward did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice carried no pride. We are the species that learned the universe doesn't care, he said. So we adapted. The channel closed. Moments later, the Imperial command lattice went dark. Without centralized control, the Armada unraveled. Fleets fragmented into isolated groups, weapons cold, crews staring at systems that refused to obey. Resistance ended not with a final explosion, but with silence. Galactic observers, hidden, neutral, terrified, broadcast the outcome across known space. For the first time in recorded history, the Empire did not dictate the end of a war. It accepted it. In the aftermath, human ships did not advance. They did not occupy Imperial worlds or raise flags over conquered space. They established corridors, stabilized orbits, and transmitted terms that contained no vengeance. Disarmament. Dissolution. Release of all subjugated species. Nothing more. On Luna, Ward recorded his final log. He looked older than he had at the start of the engagement, the cost etched in lines that would never fade. We didn't destroy an empire today, he said. We removed its ability to decide who gets to exist. He paused, choosing his words with care. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we refused to accept extinction as inevitable. The recording ended. Across the galaxy, younger species listened. Ancient powers re-evaluated assumptions they had never questioned. Somewhere, far from human space, the idea of inevitability finally died. Humanity did not claim the future. They secured the right to have one. And that was enough.